King Rowan sat in his large wooden chair, gazing out of the castle window at the gardens below. The morning sun shone gently on the marble pathways, and birds flew over the colorful flowers. But the king did not smile. His body felt heavy, his hands weak, and every breath seemed harder than before. For many years, he had ruled the kingdom with care, fairness, and wisdom. Now, as age weighed upon him, he realized his time was near. The castle was quiet, as it always was in the early hours. Servants moved softly along the stone floors, carrying baskets of fruit or preparing tea. Knights polished their armor and arranged their weapons, but all seemed more subdued than usual. Even the walls, with their tall banners and golden torches, seemed to whisper that something had changed. King Rowan's advisors whispered in small groups, speaking softly so as not to disturb their ruler. Among all those in the castle, one man stood apart with a different kind of concern. Sir Malik, the captain of the royal guard, watched over the king day and night. Malik had served King Rowan for decades. He was a tall, strong man with gray streaks in his black hair and eyes that had seen many battles. But despite his age and experience, Malik felt a worry deeper than any battle he had faced. He understood the king's importance, not only as a ruler, but as the heart of the kingdom. Losing him would change everything. Malik walked quietly into the king's chamber. The room smelled of sandalwood and fresh flowers. The king lay on a soft bed, covered with thick blankets. His face was pale, and the usual sparkle in his eyes had dimmed. Malik knelt beside the bed and bowed his head. "My king," Malik said softly, "how do you feel this morning?" King Rowan tried to smile. "I feel tired, Malik," he admitted, "tired but at peace. I have lived long and tried my best. The kingdom is strong, and the people are safe. That is all a king can hope for." Malik nodded, though his heart ached. "You have done more than your best, my king. Your name will be remembered for many generations." The king looked at Malik with a gentle gaze. "I have a request," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "When my time comes, I want to rest in a sacred place, a place that no enemy or thief can reach. I want a guard to watch over me forever. Will you do this for me, Malik?" Malik's eyes widened slightly. He had heard of such duties in stories, but he had never thought he would be asked to take one himself. "I swear it, my king," Malik said. "I will protect you in life and in death. Your rest will never be disturbed." The king nodded, satisfied. "Good. I knew I could trust you. Make sure the tomb is hidden, deep in the mountains. Only those who are loyal should know its location. And Malik, remember, this is not just for me. It is for the kingdom, for history, and for the memory of our people." Malik lowered his head. "I understand, my king. I will not fail." After this, the king closed his eyes and rested. Malik stayed by his side for hours, keeping watch. The sun climbed higher, filling the room with light, but the king did not move. The castle seemed almost frozen in time, as though it too knew. The king's days were numbered. As the days passed, King Rowan grew weaker. He could no longer walk to the gardens, and he spoke less with his advisors. But he still met with Malik daily, giving instructions, sharing memories, and telling stories. Of his youth, he spoke of the first time he became king, of battles he had fought to protect his people, and of the friends he had lost along the way. Malik listened to every word, storing it in his memory, knowing that one day he would share these stories with the guards who would come after him. Outside the castle walls, the kingdom continued as always. Farmers tended their fields, children played near the river, and merchants sold their goods in the busy towns. The people did not yet realize that the heart of their kingdom was weakening. They only saw the strong walls, the tall towers, and the brave soldiers. They did not know that their king, who had protected them for so long, was now in his final days. Inside the castle, preparations quietly began. Servants cleaned the rooms and polished the floors. Carpenters and masons reinforced secret chambers, preparing them for the king's eventual resting place. Malik oversaw every action, making sure that nothing was done carelessly. Every lock, every hidden passage, every guard's post was checked and rechecked. He understood the importance of these measures. Once the king had passed, there would be no second chance, despite the seriousness of the situation. There were moments of warmth. The king smiled when children of the court visited, and he laughed softly at stories from his old friends. Malik often joined these moments, watching the king's happiness and feeling a sense of pride. Even in his weakness, King Rowan remained the heart of the kingdom. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in orange and purple, the king called Malik once more. "I feel my time is coming," he said quietly. "Remember our promise, Malik. Keep the kingdom safe and watch over me when I'm gone." Malik took the king's hand and bowed. "I swear it, my king. Nothing will harm you. You will have peace, and your story will be remembered." The king smiled faintly and closed his eyes. The soft sound of the wind through the castle's tall windows seemed to echo his peaceful acceptance. Malik stayed by his side all night, listening to every breath, every movement. He knew that the next day could bring the moment he had been preparing for. And so, in the quiet castle, the king's last days passed with calm dignity. Malik, loyal and strong, kept watch, understanding that history was about to change forever. The kingdom outside remained unaware, but within the castle walls, every heart beat with a mixture of sorrow and honor. King Rowan's story was nearing its end, and Malik's sacred duty was about to begin. The first part of the tale closes on a note of quiet tension, with the king weak but dignified and Malik ready to take on the eternal responsibility that had been entrusted to him. The stage was set for the journey that would honor the king's life and protect his final rest. The morning sun rose over the castle walls, casting a warm glow on the towers and courtyards. Inside, Sir Malik moved quietly through the hallways, his heavy boots making soft echoes on the stone floors. He carried a small wooden box, which contained the king's most trusted documents and a map of the kingdom's hidden paths. Malik knew that the king's final request required careful planning. The sacred tomb must be hidden from enemies, travelers, and even curious eyes. Only those who were completely loyal would know its location. Malik entered a small room near the castle's east wing. Here, the oldest and most trusted soldiers gathered. They were men who had served the king for decades, men whose loyalty had never wavered. Malik placed the box on the table and opened it carefully. Inside were sketches of secret passages, notes about the mountains, and the instructions from King Rowan himself. "We have been given a great responsibility," Malik said, his voice steady but serious. "Our king has asked us to guard him even in death. He wishes to rest in a sacred tomb, far from enemies and thieves. It is our duty to make this promise true." The soldiers listened silently, understanding the weight of Malik's words. Many had fought in wars, defended the kingdom from invaders, and faced dangers that would have terrified ordinary men. But this mission was different. This was not just about protecting lives in battle. It was about protecting honor, memory, and history itself. One soldier, a man named Haroun, spoke first. "Captain Malik, we have defended the king in life. How can we guard him in death? What dangers might we face?" Malik looked at each of them, his eyes calm but firm. "The dangers are many. Thieves may come, seeking gold. Enemies may try to steal the king's body to dishonor him. Nature itself will challenge us. Storms may collapse tunnels. Wild animals may wander close. Our duty is to prepare for all these challenges. We will choose only those who are loyal to the end. Our watch must be eternal." Another soldier, Rafi, nodded. "Then we must learn every detail. We must know the tomb, the paths, and the signals. There can be no mistakes." Malik opened the map and spread it across the table. He pointed to the mountains far to the north, where jagged peaks cut into the sky. "Here's where the tomb will be," he said. "It is hidden inside a mountain. No road leads directly to it. Only we will know the path. We will carve secret entrances and make traps for anyone who tries to enter. The king's body must remain safe forever." The soldiers studied the map carefully. They traced the paths with their fingers, memorizing every curve of the rivers, every ridge of the mountains, and every hidden valley. Malik explained that the journey to the tomb would be long and dangerous, but their loyalty would guide them. After hours of discussion, Malik spoke again. This is not a task for a few days. This is a commitment for life. Many of us may grow old, and some may die, but new guards will come, learning from those who came before. The king's tomb will always have someone watching, just as we promised. The soldiers nodded. They could feel the importance of this sacred mission. It was not only about protecting a king, it was about protecting the story of a kingdom, the legacy of a ruler who had given everything for his people. That evening, Malik returned to the king's chamber. King Rowan lay quietly on his bed, looking peaceful for the first time in many days. Malik knelt beside him and reported on the preparations. The soldiers understand, my king. Malik said, they are ready to follow your instructions. The tomb will be safe, and our watch will never end. The king's eyes sparkled faintly. Good, Malik. He said, I knew I could trust you. Remember, it is not only my body you guard. You guard the story of our kingdom. You guard the hope of our people. Every generation must know that loyalty and honor can last beyond life itself. Malik bowed. I understand, my king. I will not fail. In the days that followed, preparations continued. Carpenters worked to build strong doors and hidden chambers inside the castle. Blacksmiths crafted locks and secret keys that only Malik and his closest soldiers could use. The soldiers trained daily, practicing for the journey ahead. They learned to carry heavy loads over mountains, to cross rivers swiftly, and to survive. In the harshest weather, Malik taught them not only skill, but also patience and caution. Every detail mattered, for a single mistake could ruin everything. One night, Malik stood on the castle walls and looked at the distant mountains. The moon shone bright, and the stars reflected on the calm rivers below. He imagined the path they would take, carrying the king to the tomb. He thought of the dangers, but he also thought of the honor. Every step, every action, was a promise. Kept, Malik knew that this promise was more than duty. It was a bond between the king, the soldiers, and the kingdom itself. Malik also thought about the future. Even if he did not live to see it, others would continue the watch. He would teach them, train them, and pass on the stories of loyalty and courage. The tomb would remain a secret, but the legend of the eternal guard would grow, inspiring generations to come. During these days, the king occasionally called Malik to his side. They spoke of simpler times, of battles won and friends lost, of festivals in the kingdom and the joy of seeing children play. The king's voice was calm, but his eyes carried a quiet sadness. Malik listened carefully, understanding that these memories were treasures, pieces of history that must be remembered. One evening, King Rowan said softly, Malik, promise me one more thing. When the tomb is complete and the watch has begun, do not forget to tell the new guards why they stand there. Teach them about loyalty, courage, and honor. Let them know that this is not a duty for fear or reward, but for respect and memory. Malik placed his hand over the king's. I promise, my king. Every guard will know the importance of this task. They will carry your story with them, and they will understand why loyalty matters more than life itself. The king smiled faintly, a gentle and peaceful smile. Malik could see the relief in his eyes. The preparations were complete, the soldiers were ready, and the promise had been made. The sacred tomb would soon become a reality, and the eternal guard would begin their watch. As Malik left the chamber that night, he felt the weight of responsibility more than ever. This promise was not temporary. It would last for years, decades, and even centuries. The king's rest, the kingdom's history, and the honor of generations depended on their courage, wisdom, and loyalty. And so, the secret promise was made. The king's final resting place would be safe, hidden deep in the mountains, and watched over by those who understood the true meaning of duty. Malik's heart carried both pride and determination. The journey was about to begin, and nothing would stop the eternal guard from fulfilling their sacred vow. The castle was quiet, except for the soft rustle of banners and the faint creak of wooden floors. King Rowan lay in his bed, his face pale but calm. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows. casting golden stripes across the room. Sir Malik stood near the bed, his eyes fixed on the king. The weight of what was about to happen pressed heavily on his heart. He had prepared for this moment for weeks, yet nothing could make it easier. King Rowan looked at Malik and smiled faintly. "My loyal friend," he said softly, "you have served me well. You have protected this kingdom and me for many years. I am proud of your service, and I trust you more than anyone in this world." Malik bowed his head. "It has been my honor, my king. I am ready to follow your commands, whatever they may be." The king's gaze shifted to the windows, watching the morning light fall on the gardens below. "I have lived a long life," he said slowly, "and I have seen joy and sorrow, peace and war. I have tried to serve my people with fairness, but now my time comes. Malik, I need you to promise me one last thing." "I am listening, my king," Malik said, kneeling beside the bed. "When I am gone," the king said, "my body must rest. In the tomb we prepared, the mountain must be my final home, and a guard must remain to protect me forever. This is not only for me, but for the kingdom and for history. Will you keep this promise?" Malik's voice was steady but filled with determination. "I swear it, my king. I will protect your rest, your tomb, and your memory. Nothing will ever harm you. You will have peace, as you deserve." The king nodded, his eyes moist but calm. "Good. I knew I could trust you. Remember, Malik, this duty is not for glory or reward. It is for honor, loyalty, and the future. Every guard who comes after you must understand this. Teach them, guide them, and let them know why this task is sacred." Malik bowed his head deeply. "I will do everything you ask, my king. Your story will be remembered, and your rest will remain eternal." For a moment, silence filled the room. The king's breathing was slow and measured, as if he were drawing strength from the quiet around him. Malik looked at the lines of age on the king's face, the soft gray in his hair, and the calm dignity in his eyes. He knew that soon, the man who had been the heart of the kingdom would leave this world. The king reached for Malik's hand. "You must lead the journey to the tomb," he said. "The path is long and dangerous. You will carry me through forests, rivers, and mountains. There will be storms, wild animals, and many obstacles. But you must succeed. For the kingdom and for history itself." Malik gripped the king's hand firmly. "I understand, my king. I will not fail." The king smiled, faintly, a gentle but proud smile. "I believe in you, Malik. Your courage, wisdom, and loyalty will guide you. Remember, the people love this kingdom, and they trust you. Guard me well, and guard their trust as well." In the following hours, King Rowan spoke of his life and his memories. He recalled the day he became king, the battles he fought, and the friends who had stood by him in times of trouble. He spoke of festivals, of laughter in the castle halls, and of the simple joy of seeing children play in the gardens. Malik listened carefully, knowing that these words were treasures to carry forward. Each story was a piece of history, and he promised himself to preserve them forever. As the day passed, the king grew weaker. His breathing became slower, and his eyes sometimes closed. Though he remained aware of Malik's presence, Malik stayed by his side, watching every movement, ready to act at a moment's notice. He reminded himself that his duty was more than protection. It was presence, respect, and care. That evening, the king called Malik closer. "Before the journey begins," he said softly, "I want to give you something." From beneath his pillow, he produced a small, intricately carved box. Inside was a gold ring and a signet, engraved with the royal crest. "These are symbols of the kingdom and my trust. Carry them with you, Malik. Let them guide you and remind you of the promise you have made." Malik accepted the box with reverence. "I will keep them safe, my king. They will remind me of my duty every day, and I will pass them to the next guards when their time comes." The king nodded, closing his eyes for a moment. "It brings me peace to know that my kingdom will be safe and that my story will live on. Malik, you are not only my guard, you are the keeper of memory. Do not forget this." Malik bowed once more. "I will never forget, my king. Your story and your rest will remain protected forever." As night fell over the castle, preparations for the journey began. Soldiers quietly gathered supplies, food, blankets, and tools for the mountains. Malik oversaw every detail, checking the maps, the secret paths, and the hidden entrances. The route to the tomb had been carefully planned, but he knew that nothing could ever be predicted fully. Storms, rivers, and animals could all create danger. He reminded the soldiers that their duty was not only to carry the king safely, but also to guard the path itself, ensuring that no one could follow them to the sacred tomb. The next morning, the castle was filled with a mixture of sorrow and determination. The king, though weak, sat upright in a specially built carriage. Soldiers lined the courtyard, their faces serious but respectful. Malik walked beside the carriage, giving instructions and ensuring that everyone understood the importance of the mission. King Rowan looked at the soldiers and smiled faintly. "Thank you," he said in a soft voice, "for your loyalty, your courage, and your care. You carry not just my body, but my trust and the hope of our people. Guard it well." Malik nodded. "We will, my king. Your journey will be safe, and your rest will remain eternal." The carriage began to move slowly, leaving the castle and the town behind. Malik rode beside it, alert to every sound, every movement in the trees and on the hills. The road to the tomb was long, winding through forests, crossing rivers, and climbing mountains. Each step required caution, skill, and strength. Malik reminded the soldiers that the king's safety depended not only on their weapons, but on their wisdom, patience, and loyalty. As they moved farther from the castle, the weight of the task settled heavily on Malik's shoulders. The king's trust, the kingdom's history, and the sacred promise all rested on him. He thought of the generations to come, of guards who would follow their example, and of the king's story that must remain untarnished. That night, they camped under the stars near a quiet river. The king slept peacefully, and Malik kept watch. The sounds of the forest surrounded him, but he remained alert. He thought of the tomb waiting in the mountains, hidden and sacred, and of the promise he had made. No danger, no hardship would stop him. The king's farewell had given him purpose, and he would fulfill the sacred duty at any cost. The journey had begun. The king's final days in the castle were over, and the first steps toward the eternal rest had been taken. Malik, loyal and steadfast, understood that the coming days would test his courage, his wisdom, and his endurance. Yet he also knew that honor and duty were stronger than fear, and that the story of the eternal guard had truly begun. The first light of dawn painted the sky with shades of orange and gold. The king's carriage moved slowly along the winding road, surrounded by Sir Malik and his loyal soldiers. The air was crisp and cool, carrying the scent of pine trees and earth. Malik rode beside the carriage, his eyes scanning the forests and hills, alert to every sound and movement. This journey would test their courage, strength, and determination. Every step was important, for the king's sacred tomb lay far ahead. Hidden deep within the mountains, the road was not easy. They crossed narrow bridges over rushing rivers and climbed steep hills covered in thick forest. The soldiers worked together to guide the carriage over rough terrain. Malik reminded them constantly to be careful, for one mistake could send the king or the carriage into danger. Despite the challenges, the group moved steadily, their determination stronger than any fear. On the second day, they entered a dense forest. The trees were tall, their branches forming a green ceiling that blocked much of the sunlight. The forest was alive with the sounds of birds, insects, and the rustle of small animals. Malik kept his sword close, not because he expected enemies, but because the path was difficult and danger could come from unexpected places. "This is where we must be most careful," Malik said to his soldiers. "The forest can hide many things, roots, holes, and animals. We move slowly and watch every step. The king's safety depends on us." The soldiers nodded, understanding the seriousness of their task. They moved in silence, helping each other through the thick undergrowth and carefully guiding the carriage along hidden paths. The king, resting inside the carriage, watched the sunlight dance through the leaves. He felt peaceful, knowing that Malik and the soldiers were carrying him safely. By midday, the group reached a fast-flowing river. The water was clear but strong, rushing over rocks and creating small waves. The carriage could not cross safely on its wheels, so Malik ordered the soldiers to build a temporary bridge from logs and ropes. The men worked quickly but carefully, testing every step and securing the wood so it would not shift under the carriage's weight. Malik supervised the crossing, standing in the cold water to ensure the logs were steady. "Steady now," he instructed. "We move slowly, one step at a time. Keep your eyes on the path and trust each other." The king watched quietly, impressed by the soldiers' skill and teamwork. After careful effort, the carriage crossed safely, and the group continued on their journey. Malik allowed a small smile to show, but he remained alert. Every river, every forest, and every mountain brought new challenges, and he knew their task was far from over. On the third day, the journey took them to the foot of the mountains. Jagged peaks rose high into the sky, their tops covered in snow. The path was narrow, steep, and filled with loose rocks. Malik led the way, checking each step and guiding the soldiers. The climb was slow and exhausting, but they did not complain. Every movement was careful, for the king's safety depended on their skill and patience. As they climbed higher, the air grew colder, and the wind blew sharply against their faces. The soldiers wrapped themselves in cloaks and blankets, but the cold was intense. Malik reminded them to take turns resting while others kept watch. They had to stay alert, for the mountains held hidden dangers, including loose rocks, sudden drops, and wild animals. One evening, while resting near a narrow ledge, Malik noticed movement in the shadows. A large wolf emerged, its eyes reflecting the firelight. It growled softly, circling the group. The soldiers tightened their formation around the carriage, holding their weapons ready. Malik stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Back, wolf," he said. "We mean no harm, but we will defend ourselves." The wolf hesitated, then slowly retreated into the shadows. Malik watched until it disappeared, then turned to the soldiers. "Always be ready," he said. "Even the forests and mountains can be dangerous, and we must protect the king at all times." The soldiers nodded, understanding the lesson. Every step of the journey was a test of courage, teamwork, and vigilance. The king, though weak, remained calm and trusting. He knew that Malik and the soldiers would not fail. Their loyalty gave him peace and confidence as the journey continued. By the fifth day, the group reached a high plateau overlooking the valley below. From this height, they could see the kingdom they had left behind. The towns, rivers, and forests stretched far into the distance. Malik paused for a moment, allowing the king to look out. "We are close, my king," Malik said softly. "The tomb is not far now, hidden deep within the mountains." The king smiled faintly, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I trust you, Malik. You have carried me through danger and difficulty. I could not ask for more loyal guardians." Malik bowed his head. "It is my honor, my king. We will reach the tomb safely, and your rest will be eternal." The journey grew more difficult as they neared the tomb's location. Narrow mountain paths, hidden cliffs, and sudden storms challenged their progress. Malik and the soldiers moved carefully, helping the carriage over every obstacle. They encouraged each other, shared food and water, and remained focused on their mission. Every night, they made camp in hidden spots, keeping watch over the king and preparing for the next day's challenges. One evening, as the storm approached, Malik gathered the soldiers. "We must protect the king from the rain and wind," he said. "Secure the carriage, cover it with blankets, and keep a watchful eye. The storm will test our patience and strength, but we will succeed." The soldiers worked quickly, tying ropes and covering the carriage. The storm raged through the mountains. With strong winds and heavy rain, trees bent under the force of the wind, and rocks tumbled down slopes. Malik stood firmly, guiding the soldiers and ensuring that the king remained safe. By morning, the storm had passed, and the king's carriage was unharmed. The soldiers, though exhausted, felt proud of their success. Finally, after many days of difficult travel, the group reached the entrance of a hidden valley. The valley was surrounded by towering mountains, with a narrow path leading to a secret cave. Malik paused and looked at the soldiers. "This is the place," he said. "The tomb is inside this mountain. We have completed the most dangerous part of the journey, but we must remain careful. The king's rest depends on our vigilance until the end." The king, though tired, smiled. "I am grateful to you, Malik. Your courage and skill have brought me safely to this place. I trust you completely to finish what we have begun." Malik bowed deeply. "Your trust guides me, my king. We will prepare the tomb, and the Eternal Guard will begin their watch. Nothing will disturb your rest." With that, the soldiers began the careful work of preparing the entrance to the tomb. Malik inspected every detail, ensuring that the hidden paths, secret doors, and traps were secure. The king watched quietly, satisfied that his final resting place would be safe. The journey had been long, dangerous, and exhausting, but the promise had been kept. The first steps toward the king's eternal rest were complete, and Malik knew that the sacred duty was only beginning. The tomb awaited, hidden deep within the mountain, and the Eternal Guard would soon take their place. Malik's heart was filled with pride, determination, and a deep sense of responsibility. The king's story and the kingdom's history were safe in his hands, and nothing would ever change that. The hidden valley lay quiet under the early morning sun. Jagged mountains surrounded the small clearing, shielding it from view and sound. Sir Malik and his loyal soldiers finally reached the secret entrance they had prepared for the king's tomb. The narrow path wound between large rocks and dense shrubs, almost invisible to anyone who did not know the way. Malik stopped for a moment and looked at his soldiers. "This is it," he said quietly. "The king's final resting place is within this mountain. Everything we have done, every step of the journey, has led us here. We must act carefully and honorably. The tomb will be sacred, and our duty will begin." The soldiers nodded, understanding the importance of this moment. They had carried the king through forests, rivers, and mountains. They had faced storms, wild animals, and dangerous paths. Now, at the entrance to the tomb, their task was to ensure that the king's body was laid to rest with honor, and that the Eternal Guard began their watch. Malik helped the king from the carriage and guided him gently toward the cave entrance. King Rowan's face, though tired, reflected calm and peace. He knew he was in safe hands, and his faith in Malik and the soldiers gave him comfort. The air in the valley was still, and the only sounds were the soft wind and the distant call of a bird. Inside the mountain, the tomb chamber had been prepared in secret. Walls of stone were carefully carved, and the space was large enough to hold the king's body and the soldiers who would guard it. Ancient symbols and carvings, representing the king's achievements and the history of the kingdom, adorned the walls. Candles and small lanterns illuminated the chamber, casting warm light on the carvings. Malik examined every detail to ensure that the space was secure and sacred. Placed the king on the raised platform. Malik instructed the soldiers, "It is time to perform the rites." The soldiers carefully lifted King Rowan and laid him on the platform, covering him with clean, soft cloth. The king's eyes were closed, and his breathing was calm. Malik knelt beside him and began the ancient rites, reciting prayers and words taught to him by the priests of the kingdom. The soldiers followed Malik's lead, their voices steady and reverent. "This tomb is sacred," Malik said softly. "It is a place of honor, respect, and eternal peace. We guard not only the king but the memory of our kingdom. May the king rest in peace forever." The soldiers bowed their heads in agreement. They understood that their duty was now eternal. Malik placed the gold ring and signet, given to him by the king, on the platform beside the body. These symbols represented trust, loyalty, and the authority of the king. Malik's eyes were filled with respect and determination. Once the rites were complete, Malik addressed the soldiers. "From this day forward, one of us will always guard this tomb. It is a duty for life. Every generation must know why we stand here, why we watch, and why we honor the king. This is not for glory or reward. This is for respect, loyalty, and history." The soldiers nodded. Each one understood the weight of the promise. They had carried the king through danger, and now they would carry the memory of the king into the future. Malik reminded them that the tomb must remain hidden. Only those who were truly loyal would know the path. Anyone else who approached would find the mountain impassable, the paths dangerous. In the tomb unseen. As the days passed, Malik and the soldiers established routines. One guard would always stay near the platform, watching silently. Others would patrol the hidden paths, ensuring that no one approached the tomb. They marked secret signals for emergencies and taught younger soldiers the sacred rules of the watch. Every detail mattered, for the safety of the king's rest depended on their vigilance. The chamber was simple but solemn. No unnecessary decorations were added. The carvings on the walls told the story of King Rowan's life, his courage in battle, his care for the people, and his wisdom as a ruler. Malik explained to the new guards that the carvings were not just art, they were lessons. They showed what it meant to be loyal, honorable, and brave. Months passed, and the soldiers rotated shifts while maintaining the watch. Malik trained them in endurance, observation, and strategy. They practiced responding to emergencies, crossing the dangerous paths quickly, and protecting the tomb from threats. The forest and mountains surrounding the tomb were full of natural dangers, and the soldiers respected them. Every wolf, every storm, and every loose rock became part of their training and vigilance. King Rowan's resting place became more than a tomb. It became a symbol of loyalty, courage, and history. Malik reminded the soldiers daily that their duty was sacred and eternal. "We are not only guards," he said, "we are keepers of a story, the kingdom, the people, and the future. Generations rely on our loyalty. We must be worthy of this task." One quiet night, Malik walked among the soldiers. The moonlight shone through the small cracks in the mountain walls, creating patterns on the floor. Malik paused and spoke softly. "Think of the king, not as someone who has passed, but as someone who continues to guide us. Our watch is not a punishment or a burden. It is an honor. The king's spirit will always be here, and we must live up to the promise we made." The soldiers nodded, feeling pride and determination. They understood that their watch was not limited by time. Seasons would change, years would pass, and some would grow old and die. Yet new guards would come, learning from the stories and examples of those who came before. The eternal guard would never falter. Malik also instructed the soldiers to leave records of their duty. They carved small symbols on the walls, marking the names of guards who had served faithfully. These marks would help future generations remember the commitment and courage of those who protected the king. History itself would honor them. The hidden tomb remained peaceful. The valley outside was quiet, untouched by travelers or enemies. The carvings on the walls glowed softly in the candlelight, telling the story of a king and the men who swore to guard him forever. Malik's heart was full. He knew that the most dangerous part of the journey had ended, but the eternal duty had just begun. Malik took his place near the platform, watching silently over King Rowan. The soldiers rotated their shifts, some standing guard, others resting nearby. Every moment was a reminder of the sacred promise. The king's life had ended, but his story, his legacy, and his memory lived on in the devotion of the eternal guard. And so, within the hidden mountain, the sacred tomb became a place of peace, honor, and history. Malik and the soldiers stood firm, guarding the king's rest with courage, wisdom, and loyalty. The journey had been long, the trials had been many, and the reward was eternal respect and the fulfillment of a promise that would never fade. The eternal guard had begun their watch, and nothing would disturb the king's final rest. Malik knew that their duty would continue for generations, protecting not only a king but the memory of a kingdom and the story of loyalty that would live forever. Years passed in the hidden valley, and the sacred tomb remained untouched. Malik, now older but still strong and vigilant, watched over King Rowan's resting place with unwavering dedication. The valley outside was quiet, and the mountains rose high around the tomb, guarding it naturally. But Malik knew that vigilance was never-ending. Storms could collapse paths, wild animals could wander close, and careless travelers might stumble upon hidden entrances. The eternal guard's duty required constant attention, courage and wisdom. The soldiers who had joined Malik over the years learned not only to guard the tomb, but also to respect the land around it. They knew which plants were safe, which rocks were unstable, and how to predict weather changes. Malik taught them that the mountains were allies as much as challenges. Every tree, river, and ridge could help protect the tomb if they observed carefully and acted wisely. New generations of soldiers arrived, each one trained by those who had come before. Malik welcomed them, sharing the history of the kingdom, the story of King Rowan, and the sacred promise that bound the guards together. He showed them the carvings on the walls, explaining the lessons of loyalty, honor, and courage. Every guard who took the oath understood that their duty was more than physical protection. It was the preservation of history, memory, and integrity. One morning, a young soldier named Amin approached Malik with a question. "Captain Malik," he said, "why must we guard the tomb forever? The king is gone, and the kingdom thrives. Why does this duty never end?" Malik looked at Amin with kind eyes. "It is true that the kingdom thrives, and the people live in peace. But our promise is not only to the king. It is to history and to every generation that will come after us. A king's life ends, but his story and his legacy must continue. We are the keepers of that promise. Our watch shows the world that loyalty and honor can last beyond life itself." Amin nodded, understanding more clearly. He realized that their role was sacred and eternal, and that their presence gave meaning to the king's story each day. The soldiers patrolled the paths, checked the carvings, and ensured that every detail of the tomb remained secure. They trained constantly, prepared for emergencies, and respected the land that sheltered the tomb. Seasons changed, and the valley experienced storms, heavy snow, and strong winds. Malik and the guards learned to adapt. They built small shelters near dangerous spots, reinforced bridges, and carved secret signals into the rocks when wild animals wandered close. The soldiers stayed calm and guided them away without harm. Every challenge strengthened their resolve and reinforced the lessons of loyalty and patience. One harsh winter, a landslide blocked part of the hidden path leading to the tomb. Malik and the soldiers worked tirelessly, clearing rocks, reinforcing the trail, and creating a safer route. They knew that even nature could not stop their sacred duty. The king's rest must remain undisturbed, no matter what obstacles appeared. As the years passed, Malik grew older, and new leaders among the guards emerged. They continued the watch, learning from Malik's example. He trained them in patience, vigilance, and the importance of passing knowledge from one generation to the next. The tomb remained secure, hidden, and honored. The carvings on the walls continued to tell King Rowan's story, reminding every guard of the courage, loyalty, and wisdom they were protecting. One spring morning, Malik called the guards together. "Today, I want to remind you of the promise we made," he said. "It is not enough to guard the tomb physically. We must also guard the story, the history, and the values that King Rowan stood for. Every guard who comes after us must know why we watch and what it means to protect this sacred place." The soldiers listened carefully, understanding the depth of Malik's words. He reminded them that their duty was eternal. They would face challenges, dangers, and the passing of time, but the sacred promise they had taken could not be broken. It was the bond that connected the past, present, and future. One day, Malik noticed a group of travelers near the outer paths of the valley. They were unaware of the tomb and its importance, but their curiosity could have led them into danger. Malik and his soldiers approached silently, guiding the travelers safely away without revealing the secret of the tomb. Malik watched as they disappeared over the hills, feeling relief and pride. The duty of the Eternal Guard was not only defense, but also wisdom and discretion. As Malik grew older, he trained a new generation to continue the watch. He taught them not only the skills of guarding, but also the lessons of courage, patience, and honor. Every guard who took the oath understood that their role was sacred, that they were part of a legacy that would continue for centuries. Malik knew that one day he would no longer be able to stand watch, but the Eternal Guard would continue. The tomb and the king's story were safe in capable hands. One quiet night, Malik stood alone near the platform where King Rowan rested. The moonlight shone softly through cracks in the mountain walls, illuminating the carvings and the symbols of loyalty and courage. Malik whispered softly, "My king, your rest is safe, your story is remembered, and your legacy will endure. We will continue the watch as you asked. Nothing will ever disturb your peace." A gentle breeze filled the chamber, as if acknowledging Malik's words. The mountain and valley seemed alive with calm energy, reinforcing the sacred promise. Malik felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The Eternal Guard was not only a duty, it was a living testament to loyalty, honor, and the strength of promises kept. Years turned into decades. Malik passed his knowledge to younger soldiers, ensuring that each generation understood the importance of the tomb and the promise. New challenges appeared: storms, earthquakes, and changes in the valley, but the guards adapted and remained vigilant. The tomb of King Rowan remained hidden, protected, and honored. The Eternal Guard had become more than a group of soldiers. They were keepers of history, guardians of memory, and symbols of loyalty. Each guard who took the oath understood the sacred responsibility of protecting a king who had shaped the kingdom and inspired generations. Malik knew that the story of the king and the watch would live on, guiding future generations with courage, wisdom, and respect. And so, the sacred tomb, hidden deep within the mountains, remained safe. Malik's voice, the teachings of the guards, and the stories carved on the walls ensured that the promise was never broken. King Rowan's rest was eternal, and the Eternal Guard had proven that loyalty and honor could endure beyond life itself. The story of the king, the journey, and the watch would continue forever, inspiring all who learned of it and reminding them that some promises were sacred, unyielding, and eternal. Time moved steadily, and the hidden valley remained quiet. The mountains surrounding the tomb were as tall and steadfast as ever, shielding King Rowan's resting place from view. The years had passed, and the soldiers who had once followed Malik now led the Eternal Guard. The sacred duty had become a tradition, a bond that connected generations of men who understood loyalty, honor, and history. Malik, now very old, still stood watch beside the platform where the king lay. His hair had turned silver, and his steps were slower, but his mind remained sharp and vigilant. He had trained countless soldiers, passing on every lesson he had learned about courage, patience, and wisdom. The tomb had never been disturbed, and the king's resting place remained secure. One morning, Malik gathered the guards. "We have protected the king and his story for many years," he said, his voice calm and strong. "We have faced storms, mountains, rivers, and dangers. We have honored the promise we made. Now, it is time for a new generation to continue the watch. Remember that our duty is not only to guard the tomb, but to guard the story of the kingdom and the values it represents." The younger soldiers listened carefully, understanding the importance of Malik's words. They had trained for years, learning the paths, the carvings, and the rituals that honored King Rowan. They knew that the Eternal Guard was not just a duty, it was a living legacy. Malik's example had shown them that loyalty could last beyond life, that courage could endure beyond danger, and that honor was eternal. As Malik prepared to step back, he walked quietly through the chamber, touching the walls carved with symbols of the king's life. Each symbol told a story: battles fought, people protected, wisdom shared. Malik whispered softly, "My king, your rest is safe. Your story will never be forgotten. The guards will continue, and your legacy will live forever." The soldiers continued their watch without Malik for a short while, but he remained nearby, observing and guiding when necessary. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, Malik felt his strength fading. He sat near the platform and looked at the king's peaceful face. A sense of calm filled him. He knew that his life had been dedicated to an honorable cause, and he felt satisfied that the promise he had made so many years ago would continue. Malik called the new leaders of the Eternal Guard to his side. "You have trained well," he said softly. "Remember the lessons I taught you. Protect the tomb, protect the story, and protect the promise. One day, I will no longer be here. But the duty must never end. The king's rest, the kingdom's history, and the honor of generations depend on your vigilance. The young guards bowed respectfully, understanding the gravity of Malik's words. They pledged again to guard the tomb with courage, wisdom, and loyalty. Malik smiled faintly. Proud of their commitment, he knew that the sacred duty would continue, and the eternal guard would never fail. That night, Malik passed peacefully while sitting near the platform. His final thoughts were of the king, the soldiers, and the sacred promise that had guided his life. He had fulfilled his duty, carried the king through danger, and trained the generations who would continue the watch. Malik's life ended quietly, but his legacy lived on within the hearts and minds of the guards who remained. The new leaders of the Eternal Guard honored Malik by carving his name beside the symbols on the walls. They remembered his courage, wisdom, and unwavering loyalty. Every guard who entered the tomb learned about Malik's life and the example he had set. He had shown that the watch was not just about protection, but about preserving history, memory, and honor for the future. Years turned into decades, and the valley continued to shelter the tomb. New soldiers arrived, learning the paths, the rituals, and the sacred story. They were trained by those who had learned from Malik, passing the lessons forward like a living chain. The mountains, rivers, and forests remained both challenges and allies, teaching each generation to respect the land and honor the promise they had taken. The kingdom beyond the mountains flourished, unaware of the hidden tomb and the eternal guard who watched over it. The story of King Rowan became legend, told in whispers and songs, inspiring leaders, soldiers, and citizens. Yet the sacred tomb remained secret, a place of peace, honor, and eternal vigilance. One evening, a young guard named Samir knelt beside the platform. He looked at the carvings on the walls, the symbols of courage, and the story of the king's life. He whispered softly, "I will honor the promise, protect the tomb, and continue the watch. Nothing will disturb the king's rest." The mountains remained quiet, the valley peaceful, and the tomb undisturbed. The eternal guard stood vigilant, passing from generation to generation, never failing, never yielding. Each soldier knew that they were part of something greater than themselves, a duty that transcended life and time. As centuries passed, the story of the Eternal Guard became legend. Travelers sometimes spoke of a hidden valley and a sacred tomb guarded by loyal soldiers. Few ever found the paths, and none ever disturbed the king's resting place. The carvings on the walls remain, telling the story of courage, loyalty, and honor. The mountains, rivers, and forests continued to protect the tomb, and the legacy of King Rowan lived on in the devotion of the guards. The promise made by Malik and his soldiers endured. Every generation of the Eternal Guard understood that their watch was eternal, that loyalty and honor were stronger than fear, and that history was sacred. The king's story continued to inspire, reminding all who learned it that some promises were unbreakable, some duties were eternal, and some legacies could last forever. And so, the tomb remained hidden in the heart of the mountains. King Rowan rested in peace, honored and remembered. The Eternal Guard stood watch without pause, without hesitation, and without fail. Malik's example lived on, guiding new soldiers as they learned the sacred duty of protecting the king and preserving history. The mountains, the valley, and the tomb became symbols of loyalty, courage, and eternal vigilance. The story of King Rowan and the Eternal Guard was complete, yet it was never truly finished. It continued in the hearts of the soldiers, in the carvings on the walls, and in the quiet strength of the mountains. The king's rest was eternal, and the watch would never end. The promise had been made, kept, and would last forever. The valley remained peaceful, the guards remained vigilant, and the story of honor and loyalty passed from one generation to the next. The Eternal Guard, steadfast and unyielding, had fulfilled their sacred duty, proving that some promises, some acts of courage, and some stories are eternal, living on forever in memory and devotion.